Hi, Ravi. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. It's indeed a pleasure, really a pleasure to see you here. I've followed you avidly as a fanboy on YouTube, on Mint, and wherever else. I've been in awe to see someone as young as you, or rather, getting financial freedom at a very young age. Which is a dream for a lot of people, right? It's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show with the Curated Circle team, presenting the Candid Bytes with you.
Happy to be here, Anupam.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Ravi, why don't you tell us something about your journey? The way all of this happened, and all that you want to share with the audience.
Sure. So, broadly speaking, my career started in 2006 with the coaching industry, so to say. I joined a coaching company in Calcutta, and that was your traditional offline coaching institute. Then in 2008, I started putting out videos on YouTube. To be honest, I had been putting out content online much before that. I used to do blogging and uh, other similar stuff since 2002. But I first started making videos in 2008. And at that point of time, I did not think of monetization or anything like that. My main goal at that point of time was essentially to get a good salary hike because I was going beyond my job and duty. I was taking initiative, etc., which is liked by seniors and bosses, irrespective of the field that you are in when you try to do that a little bit extra. Uh, didn't make any money. Then I did get a good salary hike and a promotion because of these initiatives, but it wasn't really a money making venture, so to say. Then I believe sometime around 2012, etc., a couple of people, couple of companies started approaching me that why don't you come and make videos for us? I was happy to do that. And then I realized that, okay, these guys were getting the videos made from me and selling it at a premium to the end user. So if they can sell my content, why can't I sell my content myself? Now, this is a great idea considering it was 2012. If you try to do this in 2023, it's not really going to work because getting sales and distribution online was a little bit easier, a little less competition in 2012. So that move of making content and trying to sell it yourself, building your own distribution worked reasonably well for me. So that's how I started my business in 2012. The business kept on growing with time. And in 2020, once COVID struck, or rather in 2018, 2019, the business started to fall a little bit because of increasing competition. And by 2020, it became a little bit difficult. And I could see that either I needed to innovate on the product or raise external funding or do X, Y, Z. There are multiple options to explore as to what can be done with respect to the business. The option that I picked was that I would rather sell this business off. And I started looking for an acquisition. An academy was kind enough to acquire. Worked with an academy for around a year and a half, 2 years or so. And after that, I decided to leave that. And that was in August last year. So the last year or so, I have been broadly chilling and tweeting and making posts and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, great. I mean, I saw your post this morning on LinkedIn. You are getting royalties from X, as in Twitter as well, which is wonderful. So Ravi, before we dive into other things, how is it to have all the money you want and all the time you want? How is that life? Please describe for all of us. A lot of us don't have that life.
Um, True, it has its good parts. It would be foolish of me and ingenuine. It will not be a genuine thing to do if I say that it doesn't have its benefits. But the perception from outside is that it is great and wonderful. It's not like that. It is, see, since probably, once you start getting serious about studies, it is always that loop. For people who come from a sort of background where there is always a goal. So, get good marks in school, get good marks in boards so that you can get science, get good marks in science so that you can go to an IIT. You go to an IIT for computer science because computer science is the best branch. Then you start to make money, you try to keep on making more money. And once you reach this sort of a stage where obviously money matters, I'm not saying that money doesn't matter, but the incremental value of a little bit of salary becomes insignificant, then your life becomes devoid of any meaning. There is no purpose. There is no reason, so to say, to get up in the morning. So it can be boring, depressing, purposeless existence at times. You might feel like you are in a black abyss of nothingness because your brain is not really occupied. So it can be a horrible thing as well at times. And obviously, it does have a certain amount of benefits, the luxury of having control over your time, not having to listen to, or get assigned tasks that you don't really want to do.
Sure. No, on that note, I was thinking earlier this morning, like, this entire concept of FIRE, right? Financial independence, retire early, and you see YouTube videos where people say, have 25x of whatever your annual income, or 30x or 40x, and I know there was a similar article in Mint which featured you sometime back. So how does, what is your recommendation? So because typically one of my friends, a close friend of mine, was asking me a few days back, hey, what do you think is the magic number? And I said, I don't know, primarily because I have not reached there and I don't know if there's a magic number. So turning it over to you, someone who's fairly done that, to say what you think about it.
See, there are a bunch of factors at play, and let's say if we have to figure out your magic number, so to say, it'll essentially be a 15-20 minute, a half an hour discussion for each and every case to figure out,
Correct.
because your
Correct.
goals are, dependents are.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, to give a certain sort of a thumb rule, so to say, I believe for a 40-year-old, and this is an assumption, assuming you are 40 years right now, because I am 40 right now, and assuming that you're married with one kid and parents are not dependent on you. With these assumptions, one kid, married, parents not dependent on you, and 40 years of age, the magic number that I believe is 30x plus y. Now, the X part of it is essentially whatever your annual expenses are. And there might be some expenses which happen monthly. Say, for example, electricity and rent. You multiply that by 12. There will be some expenses that happen, let's say, in 10 years. For example, you buy a car once in 10 years or once in 6 years, then you divide that particular cost by 6. You take a vacation twice a year, so you find out the cost of one vacation and you multiply it twice. So basically, you find out all your expenses and annualize them, add up all of them. That gives you the value of X. So that is one part of it, which is the 30X part. The other part of it, the Y part, would be the other expenses that you would have on a long term basis. For example, if you have a kid, then broadly speaking, school fee, etc., can be, because probably you will already be spending something in the school right now. If you're 40, your kid would probably be going to school. So that part gets taken care of. But the graduation and the post graduation fees are a substantial chunk. So you look at the sort of expenses that would be there for the potential graduation that you're thinking of right now. For example, if you're thinking of an IIT, IIM right now, in 2023, a decent IIT with a decent IIM would cost you something like 40 lakh rupees. Now,
Yeah.
if you are looking at a medical degree, an MBBS and MD and masters would typically cost you around 2 crore rupees right now. So you think about, okay, what's a possibility, and then you assign that particular number to it. So that is one thing. So that forms a part of why, because this is a one-time long-term expense. Then its marriage could be another one-time long-term expense. You might want to buy a second, a farmhouse or a holiday home. That is another one-time expense. You want to buy a holiday home in Dehradun for your retirement or something like that. So that is another one-time expense. You want to open a bakery, for example. You want to do angel investing, as an example. So there could be various things, whatever you want to do, whatever those one-time expenses that you can think of, figure out their current cost, and that becomes why. So you have annualized costs, 30 times that, one-time cost, sum of all those in 2023 is why. Add these two numbers up. So 30x plus y would give you a roughly a decent range or a decent number to begin with. Post that, obviously, you can add a little bit of buffer to something like this, because this is a long-term decision, so you will need a little bit of buffer over that.
Sure, sure. No, that answers my friend's question. Thank you so much. That does handle what exactly he was looking for. So, Ravi, you've also been a very successful entrepreneur. So, and a bunch of the people who typically see our episodes or shows, various episodes of the show, are people who are either entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, right? So, why don't you tell us? You already mentioned how Handeka Funda came about, but how did you? How was the journey? Where did you? How did you hire people? How did the scale happen? When did it happen along the journey? A few critical ups and downs which you want to call out, and hence, some guiding lights for people who are early in the entrepreneurial journey, or maybe even advanced, who can learn from what you say.
Fair, fair. So, see, the reason primarily for starting this business, so to say, was I believe that there exists an opportunity in this particular space. A lot of times I see entrepreneurs and people who are starting the business, they go after, okay, what I know, how do I monetize that? That becomes difficult to do. But on the other hand, if you look at, okay, what is the problem that exists right now? And is there a way I can solve that particular problem with my skill sets? So in 2012, if I wanted to start, essentially it was a coaching business that I started. I could have started it offline also. I decided to start it online because I felt that there is a certain need for online and the competition isn't there much. And in 2012, online coaching wasn't really, that popular.
Sure.
It came with its set of challenges as well, because people didn't really have faith in online coaching. But over a period of time, if you do good work, people do develop faith in your products and services. What I did was I relied a lot on stuff like SEO, marketing on social media, and all of that, which did really, really well for us. And I believe the reason why the business started dipping in 2017, 2018 in the later part of it is because I missed the YouTube bus. So I was extremely active when it comes to SEO. My website used to run fairly well. I was fairly active on Facebook, used to do really well as a customer acquisition strategy. Quora used to do really, really well. I focused on those, and those did really well, really good business. Where I faltered was I didn't do much on YouTube at that point of time. And post Geo 2017, 2018 is when YouTube exploded in India, so to say. So I believe so. That's one of the learnings, that I was not really able to adapt to the changing the consumer changed, and I was not really able to adapt to that very well. So you need to be, so your business is working, growing, fine. I'm happy for you, but you need to be aware when the consumers and the market start shifting, and you need to keep on evolving. Because I was able to evolve myself, I was able to build my business in the first place. And then I was not able to evolve myself. That is when the business started, falling.
No, I mean these are really candid bites, Ravi. I mean very very helpful. I mean you kind of this is maxim or this thing in management, right? Who moved my cheese? So exactly the point you're saying that when things change, you have to pivot yourself. And I think you're being modest. You did really well, which is why an academy acquired it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have.
Yes.
So
It wasn't that it became a loss-making organization or anything like that. We were hugely profitable and we did do very good numbers when we got acquired. All I am saying is that is where the growth, we lost out on the growth potential which was there at that point of
sure,
time.
sure. So, Ravi, which brings me to the point, generally entrepreneurship in today's day and age is very glamorized, right? You see it everywhere on social media, you see it in the newspapers. And, to my mind, only the success stories surface and the million other failures are buried. And hence, some people don't realize, they just jump for it. So, what are your do's and don'ts, checkpoints for anybody who's right now doing a job? And trust me, there are lots of them in my network who are just about to start up, right? They're saying, hey, we done with the job. And so I mean, which can be good or bad. So what's your take on the checklist or do's and don'ts?
I think it happens in each and every non-traditional field. I'll not say that it's true only for entrepreneurship. Let's say if you look at cricketers, for example, the amount of glamour and money, forget the IPL stars. Even if you are selected as someone who does not even play one match for Rajasthan Royals, but Rajasthan Royals has picked you up, you will probably have a good enough career.
Yeah.
However, I was just few days ago, I was reading a story about a bowler who kept on trying, nothing happened, and he eventually ended up becoming a Swiggy delivery executive. And in this particular World Cup, he was picked up by Netherlands team, because Netherlands team is a part of the World Cup as a net bowler. So, the idea, the one thing that I like to tell to entrepreneurs, people who are opening up restaurants, people who are trying to become artists, painters, anything which has a low success rate, they should be aware of what the success rate in that particular field is. For example, if you have done computer science engineering from any of the top 500 colleges in India, you will have a decent enough career. You will be making money 3 years, 4 years down the line, even if you're not making much money in the first year of your service. When you pick up something like entrepreneurship or becoming an artist or becoming a sportsman, you need to be aware that it's quite possible after 3 years, you are much worse financially than where you are today. So having some sort of a backup makes it a little bit easier. And I did have those sort of backups. One is that my wife was working. My wife is a qualified chartered accountant. She is also has an MBA, and she was working for Credit Suisse at that point of time when I started my business. But I don't think there are safer jobs than in a Swiss bank that exists in the world. So that, even though the business did well initially itself, so that we could sustain ourselves, but even if it didn't, I always knew that there is a fallback. I'll not have to worry about how to keep the house running. Very similarly, the fact that I went to an IIT, so I have a certain amount of network that comes with it. So, they might not be able to get me high paying and jobs like those guys are in. But I always had the confidence that if I reach out to 20 of my IIT batchmates, one of them will offer me a decent enough job if everything fails. Then the fact that both my parents were doctors, they were government doctors, so it's not like the rich doctors that you see. They were government doctors, but and that also state government doctors. But even with state government doctors, their financial status might not be enough to uh, take me through life, but it is enough to ensure that they are never dependent on me. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
do not have any sort of financial responsibilities that I have to send money home. I have to take care of them in financially, or think about, okay, when they retire, how are they going to fund their retirement? So I never had those sort of pressures. So
Yeah.
some people, I do agree, they start, so I would like to say I started at a point where I was just supposed to be responsible for myself. A lot of people have pressures of others which sort of push them down, and they need to fight back against those pressures. So just starting being completely independent that itself is a huge amount of privilege which I had. So you need to
Sure.
keep the point that I'm trying to make here is you need to keep all this in mind when you think about any of these sort of alternative career options, that what happens if you fail gloriously. So the backups need to be there in place. These were the backups that I had. You could have a different sort of backup in mind, that okay, I am starting a restaurant, but I still have my I'm pretty good at coding in Python, so that is there as a backup. If my restaurant does not work, I can go back to coding in Python. So you need something to back you up.
For sure, very very logical. And on that point, another question which does the rounds, and uh, typically, I mean, I would like to preempt that my answer is always it depends. But I always get to see people asking around, yeah, I'm going to start a product company, and I am the sole learning member. So how many months or years of runway do I need of living expenses? Someone else comes and says, hey, I want to start a consulting company, I will do services and consulting. How many months and years of runway do I need? And while I always say it depends, but I'd love to know from
I
you.
it I can only talk about, let's say, if you are trying to start something in uh, EdTech, coaching, etc., because that's the space that I know about. You would need to have typically a 2 years of runway. The first year to essentially make the product, establish the product, and get your first customer. And by the second year, you would probably know if this is something that the customers want or like. So
Yeah,
if suppose you want to start a YouTube channel where you will teach coding to people, and then in future, if it works, you will start a course or anything of that sort. In that scenario, I would very strongly recommend to give yourself 2 years of runway, because in 2 years you will know whether whether it's going somewhere or not. And if it's not going anywhere in 2 years, then it's highly unlikely that it would. In the coaching, education, training, teaching sort of space, because that's the space that I'm aware about.
sure.
About the other spaces, I honestly wouldn't know.
No, I know. I mean, that's a precise definition you are giving for the space you have great expertise in, which is wonderful. I think a bunch of people still, while EdTech has been going through things, but I think a bunch of people would still benefit a lot from what you gave as guidance on that. Uh, on that note, Ravi, I've come across uh, quite a few people who are solopreneurs, right? There's this thing doing the rounds now of solopreneurs. In fact, I had the good opportunity of speaking to Kanak recently, who is a solopreneur based out of Goa. So, what's your take on solopreneurship and versus entrepreneurship? Do you have a perspective?
I started out as a solopreneur myself, because when I started the business part of it, I didn't have a single employee for the first 4 5 months. For the first
Okay.
4 5 months, I worked alone. I hired my first employee after 4 5 months, and I think I hired my second employee after 1.5 years. So it was essentially, that's the starting part of it. In hindsight, I think it was a stupid idea, to be really honest, for someone like uh, me, because entrepreneurship in itself is hard. There is no doubt about it. And doing it solo just means that you are making it harder for yourself. I'm not saying it becomes impossible, but let's say when you start playing a new video game and it gives you the options of easy, medium, hard, etc. It depends on what sort of psychology you have. I have friends who will always start with the hardest mode in the first go, that okay, let's see how it goes. And very similarly, you will have people, okay, let's try the easy mode first. Once we get a hang of it, then we'll move on to the medium and the harder part. So solopreneurship is playing the entrepreneurship game on the hard mode. Now if you're unable to find someone, then it is no longer a choice. But if you have a choice of getting someone with a complementary skill set on board, then I would say, please go ahead, get a co-founder. It makes your life a lot easier.
No, interesting. On that note of co-founders, I was recently reading an article, right, where some of the wonderful people on LinkedIn had commented on it. So, how do you look at the trust angle while picking a co-founder? How would you know, really? I
I,
mean,
I have no idea, man. It's a extremely hard problem to solve, because a the other person needs to be not only smart and qualified, and entrepreneurship should have an entrepreneurship bent of mind, but he should also have a skill set which is very, very different from yours. Now suppose both of us are say for example good speakers, and we start a company where we teach people how to speak or how to communicate. It's a horrible idea to do that, because the skill set that both of us are bringing to the table, although you want to do entrepreneurship, you are smart, you're good at your job. I want to do entrepreneurship, I'm smart, I'm good at my job. But both of us as a team are not really a great team, because we are not bringing different skills to the table.
yeah, I see.
So that needs to happen. And then there is obviously the softer factors, that you need to have a certain amount of trust in the co-founder. Both of you should be really, really motivated to achieve whatever goal you have set out to achieve. So it's a very hard problem to solve, and I don't really think a template, so to say, exists.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I believe from whatever I have seen, it probably works best when people have worked in similar set of space before. So let's say if both of us have worked in SaaS businesses, I was on the production side, you were on the sales side. I believe that becomes a very good combo, because both of us know the space well enough. I am bringing the product experience, you are bringing the sales experience. That makes a lot of sense. But that's not necessary. It is just that it will increase your survival rate from 1% to maybe 1.1%. It does not make it from 1% to 50%, but it does help. It's a very difficult problem to solve.
Somewhere down the line, you did mention your IIT alum network. Yeah. So I know it must be wonderful. Why don't you tell all of us a little bit of your experience with the alum network after you moved out of college and in all these years?
To be really honest, I wasn't able to leverage the alum network a lot because of the sort of space that I was in. Because I was not selling to corporates, I was selling to college students. And there it didn't help much. However, what happens is at the time of acquisition, when I was trying to sell the company. If I wanted to get an introduction from company X or company Y, it became relatively easier because I would probably have a senior or a junior or a batchmate who is working in the company who will be able to connect me to someone. So at that point of time, it did make a difference. And the another part that makes a difference is that I have friends and connections who are working in. So the fact that I was able to resign last year and sit at home without even looking for a job and let's see what happens, I'm fairly confident that even after 3 years or 4 years, if I try to look for a job, it would be very difficult for a lot of people. But I believe it will be a little bit easier for me purely because I will have friends who are working in senior positions in a wide variety of companies.
Sure,
So
sure.
it might not help directly, but it does give you a lot of confidence to take an additional risk and try out things because at the back of the mind that yes, there exists Madhukar Priyesh, who is a senior director in a $1 billion company, who I can call and he'll get me a job.
Sure,
So
sure.
that
Yeah, definitely. That really adds a lot, and I believe even the exchange of thoughts at times, because your bandwidth would match, and you've had your own successes, So, and so what's the next step for Ravi Handa? What do we expect?
I don't really have too much clarity on it, to be honest. I am experimenting with a few things. I am creating content for money control, so to say. I'm writing a couple of articles for them. I tried my hand at stand-up comedy a couple of months ago. I'm also making crosswords these days. So these are various little items that I always wanted to do and try. Then the rest of it, what I do know is I'm not really looking for a stressful, high commitment job or maybe starting a business or anything like that. So I have a very young kid. The kid is 2.5 right now. So at least till once he starts going to a proper school till he's 5-ish or so, I would probably have a chill life and post that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, what a coincidence. I have a 2-year-old and he's making his presence felt in the background. Sorry about that. He's shouting about it. Parting thoughts, Ravi. Wonderful chat, but parting thoughts from you for the audience to take away from what has been a very, very insightful session with inputs coming from you.
So the one thing which I would, like to emphasize on, because a lot of conversations that people, 2 years ago or 10 years ago, whenever I used to have conversations with strangers on LinkedIn or any other conference or anything like that, they were all around entrepreneurship, how to start, and that was people who wanted to do something. However, over the last year or so, because of the fire journey that I have been on, a lot of conversations that I have are related to fire. And that's where I like to tell all listeners that it's a bad goal to chase, so to say. It is, you know, not something that you should actually work very hard for or strive for. If it happens, it happens. But do not ruin your present in the hope that, okay, my post fire life is going to be really good. If you're happy right now, the similar stuff is going to continue. If you're miserable right now, you'll continue to be miserable. It does help the financial security and the independence. I'm not denying it, but it is not really going to be a game changer in any way. So, there is that Metallica lyric that be careful of what you wish for. You might just get it, and you might regret it. So, it's from King Nothing. Strongly recommend listening to King Nothing, and probably you'll get the context that I'm giving out. So just be a little bit careful in planning and thinking about, because it looks very glamorous from the outside, but it's not that glamorous, so to say.
Sure, sure, sure. So, so as they say, the other side of the grass is always greener. But wonderful speaking, Ravi. I think thank you so much for your time this morning. And here at the Curated Circle team and our audience, we are super excited to have you on the show, and looking forward to the possibility of having you again in the future, if your time permits.
Absolutely, Anupam. It was a wonderful chat, and I would love to do it again. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ravi.
Thank you.